What happens when a country music legend walks onto one of daytime television's most controversial stages and refuses to play by the rules? What we witnessed was not just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in standing your ground, a collision between two completely different worlds and a moment that had producers scrambling, cameras rolling, and an audience sitting in stunned silence. Before we get into exactly what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on in this clash. Now, let's dive into what really happened when Willie Nelson sat down with Joy Behar. The studio audience was buzzing with anticipation. Willie Nelson, the 80-something icon with braids hanging past his shoulders and that weathered face that tells 1,000 stories, walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. He moved slowly, deliberately, carrying himself with a quiet confidence of someone who had seen it all and had nothing left to prove. He waved to the crowd, that familiar bandana tied around his head, and settled into the guest chair with a slight nod. Joy Behar leaned forward immediately, her signature sharp grin already forming. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah N., Sunny Host, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, sat ready with their notes and their own questions. But everyone knew this was Joy's moment. She had been vocal all week about getting Willie on the show, promising her audience that she would ask the tough questions. "Willie Nelson, welcome to The View," Joy began, her voice carrying that distinct New York bite. "It's an honor to have you here. I've been a fan for years, but I have to say I've got some questions for you today that might make you uncomfortable." Willie adjusted his hat and looked at her with those calm, knowing eyes. "Well, Joy, I've been uncomfortable before. I'll survive." The audience chuckled nervously. There was already tension in the air, something electric and unpredictable. Joy didn't waste time. "Let's talk about your image, Willie. You've built this entire persona around being the outlaw, the rebel, the guy who doesn't care what anyone thinks. But when I look at some of the things you've said over the years, some of the people you've associated with, I have to wonder, is it all just an act, or do you really believe in being this rebel without a cause?" Willie's expression didn't change. He let the question hang in the air for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "I don't think I've ever been without a cause. Joy, I've always known what I stand for. Maybe that's what bothers some folks. What bothers me," Joy shot back, "is when someone with your platform, your influence, refuses to take a clear stance on issues that matter. You've been so neutral on so many things, Willie. It's like you're afraid to offend anyone." Whoopi shifted in her seat, sensing where this was going, but she stayed quiet. The other hosts exchanged glances. Willie smiled, but it wasn't warm. "I don't think neutrality is the same as fear, Joy. I think it's called respect. Respect for the fact that people are complicated, that life isn't black and white, and that maybe, just maybe, we don't all have to agree on everything to get along." "But that's exactly the problem," Joy interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "When you refuse to take a stand, when you sit on the fence, you're essentially saying that both sides are equal, and they're not, Willie. They're just not." The audience was split. Some clapped, others sat in silence. Will he let the applause die down before responding? "I've taken plenty of stands in my life, Joy. I've stood up for farmers, for the environment, for legalization, for marriage equality. I've used my music to speak when words weren't enough. But what I won't do is pretend that everyone who disagrees with me is evil or stupid. That's not how the world works." Joy leaned forward, her finger pointing. "So, you're telling me that you think there's a middle ground on everything, even on things like human rights, like basic decency?" "I'm telling you," Willie said, his voice steady but firm, "that demonizing people doesn't change their minds. It just makes them dig in deeper. I've seen it my whole life. You want to change someone's heart. You sit down with them. You talk to them. You find common ground. You don't scream at them from across a TV studio." The tension was palpable. Now, Sarah N. tried to jump in with a softer question, but Joy held up her hand. "Hold on, Sarah. I want to stay on this." Joy said, "Willie, I respect your career. I really do. But I think what you're describing is privilege. You can afford to be neutral because these issues don't affect you personally. For a lot of people watching right now, these aren't just political talking points. They're life or death." Willie's jaw tightened just slightly. "You don't know what affects me personally, Joy. You don't know my life, my family, my friends. Just because I don't shout about every single thing on social media doesn't mean I don't care. Then why not use your voice?" Joy pressed. "You have millions of fans, Willie. You could make a real difference if you just picked a side." "I'd use my voice," Willie replied, his tone getting sharper. Every time I sing, every time I write a song, every time I stand on a stage. But I'm not going to be a puppet for anyone's agenda. Joy, not yours, not anyone else's. I've lived too long and seen too much to be told how to think. Joy laughed, but it was humorless. So, you're saying I'm trying to control you? That's rich. I'm saying you're trying to put me in a box, Willie said. And I don't fit in boxes. Sunny host finally spoke up, trying to redirect. Willie, I think what Joy is trying to get at is accountability. When you have a platform like yours, don't you feel a responsibility to use it for good? I'd use it for good, Willie said, looking at Sunny. But my definition of good might be different from yours. And that's okay. That's what makes this country what it is, or at least what it's supposed to be. Joy wasn't letting go. But Willie, you can't just what? Willie interrupted, his voice finally showing frustration. Can't just think for myself. Can't just live my life the way I see fit. Can't just refuse to play along with whatever game you're trying to play here. The audience gasped. Whoopi's eyes widened. This was going off the rails. Joy's face flushed. I'm not playing a game, Willie. I'm asking you legitimate questions. No, Willie said, shaking his head. You're trying to corner me. You're trying to get me to say something that'll make headlines. Something you can twist into whatever narrative you're pushing this week. I've been doing interviews for 60 years, Joy. I know how this works. Then maybe you should stop doing them, Joy snapped. The studio went silent. Even the producers in the control room froze. Willie stared at Joy for a long moment, then slowly stood up. Maybe you're right, he said quietly. Whoopi jumped in. Willie, wait. Let's just take a breath here. But Willie was already unclipping his microphone. His hands moved with practiced ease, the small black box coming free from his belt. He set it carefully on the chair. I came here today because I thought we could have a conversation, Willie said, his voice carrying across the studio despite having no mic. But you don't want a conversation, Joy. You want a confession. You want me to say I'm wrong? That I've been wrong. That everyone who doesn't think exactly like you is wrong? And I'm not going to do that. Joy stood up to her voice sharp. You're walking out. Really? This is how you handle a tough interview. This isn't a tough interview, Willie replied. This is an ambush. There's a difference. Sarah and Alyssa both tried to speak, their voices overlapping, but Willie was already moving toward the edge of the stage. Security personnel appeared, unsure whether to stop him or help him. The audience was split between gasps and cheers. Joy called after him. You can't just leave, Willie. We're live. Willie turned back just for a moment. Watch me. And with that, the country legend, the man who had played for presidents and protesters alike, who had sung about heartbreak and hope for more than half a century, walked off the View's stage while the cameras were still rolling. The cameras stayed locked on Willie's back as he made his way toward the exit. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or sit in shocked silence, so they did both. A strange mixture of clapping and gasping that filled the studio. Whoopi stood up from her seat, her hands raised in a calming gesture. Willie, please, Whoopi called out. Come on now, let's not do this. Let's talk this through. Willie stopped. He didn't turn around immediately, just stood there for a moment with his hand on the curtain that led backstage. The entire studio held its breath. Then, slowly he turned back to face the panel. His expression was unreadable. That weathered face showing neither anger nor surrender. Just a kind of tired resignation. Whoopi, I respect you, Willie said, his voice still carrying without the microphone. I always have, but I can't sit here and be told who I am by someone who doesn't know me. Joy wasn't backing down. She stood at her seat, her arms crossed. Nobody's telling you who you are, Willie. I'm asking you to take responsibility for your influence. That's all. No, Willie said, shaking his head. That's not all. You're asking me to think like you, talk like you, agree with everything you believe. And when I don't, you call it privilege or cowardice, or whatever other label makes you feel better about dismissing me. Sunny jumped in, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Willie, I don't think that's fair. We're just trying to understand your perspective. You have to admit, some of the things you've said over the years have been well confusing. You support some progressive causes, but then you stay silent on others. People want consistency. Willie walked back toward the panel, not sitting down, but standing at the edge of the stage. Consistency. You want consistency. I'm consistently myself, Sunny. I don't change who I am based on what's popular or what's trending or what's going to get me. Applause from people who will forget about me next week. I stand for what I believe in, even when it's complicated. Even when it doesn't fit neatly into your categories. Alyssa Farah Griffin, who had been quiet up until now, spoke up. But Willie, don't you think in this current climate, silence can be interpreted as complicity? I mean, I come from a political background, and I can tell you that neutrality often benefits those in power. I'm not neutral, Willie said, his frustration showing again. How many times do I have to say it? I've spent my entire life fighting for things I believe in. I've put my money where my mouth is. I've organized. I've performed at benefits. I've spoken out when it mattered. But I'm not going to perform my beliefs for your cameras. I'm not going to reduce everything I stand for into a soundbite that makes you comfortable. Joy scoffed. This isn't about comfort, Willie. This is about accountability. Accountability to who? Willie shot back. To you, to this show. I'm accountable to my conscience, to my family, to the people I've made promises to. I don't owe you an explanation for every thought I've ever had. Sarah N., always the peacemaker, tried a different approach. Willie, I think maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Can we start over? Can you tell us about your new album? About the music you're making now? Willie looked at Sarah, and for a moment his expression softened. Sarah, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but we both know that's not why Joy brought me here today. This was never about my music. Joy threw her hands up. Oh, here we go. Now I'm the villain. I ask a few tough questions, and suddenly I'm the bad guy. You're not the villain, Willie said, his voice quieter now, but somehow more powerful. But you're not listening either. You asked me here to make a point, not to have a conversation. You wanted to trap me into saying something that would confirm what you already believe about me. And when I wouldn't play along, you got angry. I'm not angry, Joy said, though her voice said otherwise. I'm disappointed. I thought you were better than this. Better than what? Willie asked. Better than having my own mind. Better than refusing to be bullied. Into conforming. You know what disappoints me? Joy. That someone who claims to be all about free speech and independent thinking can't handle it when someone actually thinks independently. The audience reacted. Some clapping, some booing. The division in the room was stark. Whoopi tried to regain control. Okay. Let's all take it down a notch. Whoopi said. We're getting heated here, and that's not helping anyone. Willie, I hear what you're saying. And Joy, I think Willie has a point too. Can we find some middle ground here? Joy looked at Whoopi incredulous. Middle ground? Whoopi, come on. You know as well as I do that some things don't have middle ground. And that's exactly the problem. Willie interjected. That right there, the idea that there's no room for nuance, no space for complexity, no possibility that two people can disagree without one of them being evil. That's what's tearing this country apart. Joy, not people like me who try to find common ground. Common ground with who? Joy challenged. With people who want to take away rights. With people who deny science. With people who spread hatred. Where's the common ground there, Willie? I didn't say I have common ground with hatred, Willie replied. But I do believe that most people, even people I disagree with, aren't motivated by hatred. They're scared. They're confused. They're misinformed. And you don't fix that by screaming at them. You fix it by talking to them like human beings. Sunny shook her head. With all due respect, Willie, that sounds like something someone says when they're not the one being targeted. When you're not the one whose rights are on the line, it's easy to talk about civil discourse and finding common ground. Willie's eyes flashed. You don't know whose rights are on the line for me, Sunny. You don't know who I love, who I've lost, what I've fought for behind closed doors where there aren't any cameras. Just because I don't perform my pain for you doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The studio was electric now. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was something raw, more personal. Joy leaned on the desk. Then tell us, Willie. Tell us about this pain you're talking about. Make us understand why. Willie asked. So you can judge whether it's valid. So you can decide if I've suffered enough to have an opinion. No, Joy. Alyssa tried again. Willie, I don't think anyone's questioning your right to think for yourself. But when you're in the public eye, when you have influence, your words and your silence both have impact. Surely you can see that. Of course I can see that, Willie said. I've seen it my whole career. I've seen how one song can change someone's life, how one lyric can help someone get through a hard time. I've also seen how one careless word can be twisted, how one moment of honesty can be used against you forever. So yes, I choose my words carefully. But that doesn't mean I'm silent. And it doesn't mean I don't care. Joy wasn't satisfied, but careful to the point of meaningless Willie. That's what I'm talking about. You're so careful that you end up saying nothing at all. I say plenty, Willie countered. You're just not listening. Or maybe you're only listening for the things you want to hear. And when you don't hear them, you assume I'm not saying anything. Whoopi sighed heavily. This is going in circles. Can we please just know? Whoopi Joy interrupted. I want to finish this. Willie, one more question. Just one, and I want a straight answer. Willie crossed his arms. Go ahead. Do you think? Joy began choosing her words carefully that your refusal to take clear, definitive stances on major issues. Your insistence on this both sides philosophy. Do you think that helps or hurts the causes you claim to care about? The question hung in the air. Everyone waited for Willie's response. He took his time looking at each of the hosts in turn, then out at the audience, then finally back to Joy. I think, Willie said slowly, that the world isn't helped by more division. I think that when you make everything into a war, into an us versus them battle, you lose the people in the middle who might have been willing to listen. I think that purity tests and loyalty oaths and demands that everyone think exactly the same way. I think all of that makes the world smaller and meaner and harder to live in. So, to answer your question, I think my way helps. It might not help you get more clicks or more controversy or more viral moments, but it helps real people living real lives who are tired of being told they have to choose a team and hate everyone on the other one. Joy stared at him. That's really how you see this. You think I'm just doing this for clicks? I think you're doing this because you genuinely believe you're right, Willie said. And I respect that. But I also think you've forgotten how to imagine that someone else might be right too. Or at least not completely wrong. Some things are wrong, Willie, Joy said firmly. Some things are just wrong. And refusing to say so isn't noble, it's cowardly. Willie picked up his microphone from the chair where he'd left it. For a moment, it looked like he might clip it back on. Instead, he held it in his hand, looking at it like it was some foreign object. You know what, Joy? Willie said, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to think I'm a coward or a fence-sitter, or whatever else makes you feel superior. But I came here in good faith thinking we could have an actual conversation, and instead I got a lecture. So I'm going to leave now, and you can say whatever you want about me after I'm gone. I'm sure it'll make great television. He set the microphone down on the desk in front of Joy. The gesture deliberate and final. Joy stared at the microphone on the desk, then back up at Willie. Her face was flushed, her jaw set. You're really doing this? You're really walking out on a live show because you couldn't handle a few tough questions. Willie shook his head slowly. No, Joy. I'm walking out because you're not asking questions. You're making accusations and waiting for me to apologize for not being who you want me to be. There's a difference. Whoopi stood up again, her voice taking on a more serious tone. Willie, come on. We've had plenty of heated discussions on this show. That's what we do here. But we don't walk out on each other. We talk it through. Whoopi, I've got nothing but respect for you, Willie said, turning to face her directly. But talking it through requires two people willing to listen. And I don't think Joy is interested in listening to anything I have to say, unless it's in agreement with everything she already believes. Sarah jumped in, her voice almost pleading. Willie, please, can we just reset? Start fresh. I really do want to hear about your music, about what you're working on now. Can we talk about that? Willie looked at Sarah with something close to sympathy. Sarah, you seem like a genuinely good person. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend the last 20 minutes didn't happen. Just so we can have some comfortable conversation about my tour dates. That would be fake. And I don't do fake. Sunny leaned forward. So, what do you want, Willie? What would it take for you to stay and finish this conversation? Willie considered the question. An actual conversation, Sunny. Not an interrogation, not a setup, a real back and forth where we might actually learn something from each other instead of just trying to score points. Joy laughed bitterly. Oh, please. You want us to just sit here and nod along while you talk in circles and refuse to take any real position on anything. That's not a conversation, Willie. That's a waste of everyone's time. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Willie said, pointing at Joy. Right there. You've already decided that anything I say that doesn't align with your worldview is talking in circles. You've already made up your mind about me. So why should I stay? Alyssa spoke up, her voice measured. Because walking out doesn't solve anything, Willie. It just confirms what people already think about you. Whatever that might be. If you stay, if you engage, at least you have a chance to change minds. Change minds. Willie repeated. Alyssa, look around this room. Look at that audience. Half of them made up their minds about me before I even sat down. And nothing I say is going to change that. The other half, the people who actually listen, they're going to understand why I'm leaving. Those are the people I care about reaching. Joy stood up from her seat, walking around the desk to stand closer to Willie. The camera operators scrambled to adjust their angles. You know what, Willie? I think I finally understand you. You're not some principled, independent thinker. You're just conflict-averse. You don't want to take strong positions because you don't want to deal with the you want everyone to like you, and you can't have that if you actually stand for something specific. Willie's eyes hardened. You think I'm conflict-averse? Joy, I've been fighting my whole life. I've fought the music industry, the government, the establishment, public opinion. I've been arrested, sued, audited, criticized, and everything in between. But I pick my fights based on what matters, not based on what's going to get me applause from people who don't actually care about the issue. They just care about the performance. That's convenient. Joy shot back. You get to decide what matters. You get to pick and choose which fights are worthy of the great Willie Nelson's attention. Meanwhile, regular people don't have that luxury. They have to live with the consequences of people like you staying silent. People like me. Willie's voice rose for the first time. You don't know people like me, Joy. You don't know what I do when the cameras are off. You don't know who I help, what causes I support with my time and my money and my energy. You see me for an hour on your show, and you think you've got me all figured out, but you don't know me at all. Whoopi moved between them, literally stepping into the space. Okay, this is getting too personal now. Let's everybody take a step back. But Willie and Joy were locked in now, neither willing to back down. Joy spoke over Whoopi. Then tell me, Willie, tell me what you do. Prove me wrong. Give me one example of you taking a real stand on something controversial in the last 5 years. Why should I have to prove anything to you? Willie asked. Why is my integrity on trial here? I came on this show as a guest, Joy, a guest. And you've treated me like a hostile witness. You want examples? Fine. I've supported veterans' causes, fought for family farms, advocated for alternative energy, raised money for disaster relief, spoken out for criminal justice reform. But I did all of that without making it about me, without demanding credit, without turning it into a publicity stunt. Because that's not why I do it. Joy crossed her arms. And yet here you are listing it all out for me. Sounds like you do want credit after all. Willie's laugh was sharp and humorless. You backed me into a corner and demanded receipts, and now you're criticizing me for providing them. This is exactly what I'm talking about. There's no winning with you, Joy. No matter what I say, no matter what I do, you're going to find fault with it because I'm not performing activism the way you think it should be performed. Sonny tried to mediate. I don't think that's fair, Willie. Joy is just asking for clarity for specifics. That's not unreasonable. It is when it comes with an assumption of guilt, Willie replied. When you start from the position that I'm wrong, that I'm failing somehow, and then demand that I defend myself. That's not a conversation. That's a trial. Sarah's voice was almost a whisper. This is getting really uncomfortable. Good, Joyce said, turning to Sarah. Sometimes uncomfortable is necessary. Sometimes we need to push people, challenge them, make them think about their impact. Or maybe, Willie said quietly, sometimes we need to listen more and lecture less. Maybe sometimes we need to accept that people are complex, that they don't fit into neat little boxes, and that disagreement doesn't equal moral failure. Joy turned back to him. And maybe sometimes people need to be held accountable for their platforms and their privilege and their choice to stay comfortable instead of fighting for what's right. I'm not comfortable. Joy, Willie said, his voice tired now. I haven't been comfortable in a long time. But I'm not going to apologize for not fighting the way you think I should fight. I'm not going to apologize for trying to build bridges instead of burning them. And I'm not going to sit here and let you paint me as some kind of coward because I won't join your particular crusade. Alyssa raised her hand like she was in a classroom. Can I just say something? I think both of you have valid points. Willie, you're right that nuance is important, that we need to be able to talk to people we disagree with. But Joy, you're also right that silence can be harmful, that people with platforms have responsibilities. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. Willie looked at Alyssa. See, that's what I've been trying to say this whole time. The middle isn't about being weak or uncommitted. It's about recognizing complexity. But Joy doesn't want complexity. She wants certainty. She wants everyone to line up and agree with her. And anyone who doesn't is the enemy. That's not true, Joy protested. I just want people to use their power for good. According to your definition of good, Willie countered, that's the part you keep leaving out. You want people to use their power for what you think is good. And when they don't, when they have their own definition, their own priorities, you attack them for it. Joy's voice got louder. Because some definitions are wrong, Willie. Some priorities are misguided. Not everything is relative. Not everything is a matter of opinion. I agree, Willie said, surprising everyone. Some things are absolutely wrong, but the list of those things is shorter than you think, and the way we respond to them matters. You can be against something without demonizing everyone who doesn't express that opposition in exactly the same way you do. Whoopi tried one more time. Willie, Joy, can we please just find some common ground here? Something we can all agree on. Willie and Joy looked at each other. There was a long silence. Finally, Willie spoke. I think the only thing we're going to agree on is that we disagree. And you know what? That's okay. That's allowed. I don't have to think Joy is evil just because she thinks I'm a coward. And she doesn't have to think I'm righteous to make this conversation more pleasant. We can both walk away from this thinking the other person is wrong, and the world will keep spinning. Joy shook her head. See, that's where you're wrong. The world keeps spinning, but people get hurt while it does. And you're both sides. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Philosophy doesn't help the people getting hurt. It just makes it easier for the people doing the hurting. And your everyone who disagrees with me is evil philosophy. Willie shot back. Doesn't help anyone either. It just makes the divide bigger, the anger deeper, the possibility of actual change more remote. We're never going to agree on this, Joy. Never. And that's fine. But I'm not going to stand here and let you lecture me about morality and responsibility like you're the arbiter of both. Joy stepped closer. Someone has to be willing to call out what's wrong, Willie. Someone has to be willing to say enough is enough. If that makes me self-righteous in your eyes, so be it. At least I'm standing for something. So am I, Willie said. I'm standing for the idea that we're all human beings trying to figure this out, that we're all flawed, that we all make mistakes, and that grace and understanding might actually get us further than judgment and condemnation. But you can't see that because you're so convinced that your way is the only way. Whoopi threw up her hands. Okay, I give up. You two are just going to keep going in circles. Willie, if you want to leave, leave. Joy, if you want to keep arguing, argue. But I'm done trying to referee this. Willie nodded slowly. Fair enough. Whoopi, I appreciate you trying. He looked out at the audience, many of whom were on their phones, already tweeting and posting about what they were witnessing. I want to say something to everyone watching. This right here, this is what's wrong with how we talk to each other now. We don't listen. We don't try to understand. We just wait for our turn to talk. And if we don't get it, we get angry. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I know that this is what just happened here. This isn't the way forward. We've got to do better. All of us. Joy started to respond, but Willie held up his hand. I'm done, Joy. You can have the last word. I'm sure it'll be a good one, but I'm leaving now, and I'm not coming back. He turned and walked toward the exit. This time with purpose, with finality. The cameras followed him every step of the way. Whoopi called after him one more time, but he didn't turn around. The audience was chaos now. Some people standing, some sitting, everyone talking. Joy walked back to the desk, her expression unreadable. She sat down heavily in her chair, and for just a moment, she looked tired. Then she looked directly into the camera. Well, that was something. We'll be right back after this break. But Willie Nelson was already gone. The door closing behind him with a soft click that somehow felt louder than anything that had been said in the last hour. So there you have it. A conversation that started as a simple interview and ended with one of music's biggest legends walking off one of television's biggest stages. Was Willie right to leave? Was Joy right to push? That's for you to decide. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and drop a comment below. Here's my question for you. When someone challenges your beliefs the way Joy challenged Willie's, do you engage or do you walk?